Hello and welcome to Kicking Tires. My name is Jimmy,
And I'm Justin.
and today we actually don't have too many topics today. The news segment for this week has been a little slower, but still some interesting stuff. Shall we get right into it?
Yeah, let's get started.
All right. First things first. This is well, something that I didn't think would come. It's the Defender, and it's a very big defender. It's a very fast defender. I mean, justice.
Yeah, Defender V8. I mean, the Defenders hasn't been out that long, this new model with a 90 and a 110, but they're also bringing back the V8 nameplate, which is really nice. With 520 something horsepower. Super, super competent kind of. But I didn't think the normal engine was slow or anything.
Yeah.
Didn't think.
So like the regular defender, the P400, everyone that kind of tested out and said, it's more than adequate. It's more than enough for this kind of chassis.
Mhm.
And Land Rover is just like, hey, you know what? We have that 5-liter V8. Why don't we just shove it in here and see what happens?
Yeah, I mean, because this is not like the old Defender where the base model was quite pretty underpowered. We have a pretty solid base already, but yeah, the V8 model was 0 to 60 time under 5 seconds. They say if you get the 90,
Hmm.
yeah,
I mean,
that's
with the top
insane.
speed of almost 150 miles per hour. I mean, do you really want to go 150 miles per hour in a Defender?
Something that's like what they say, less aerodynamic than a cow.
Like, I think it'll be a little scary at that point. But they have upgraded the suspension with stiffer bushings, excuse me, and larger anti-roll bars, and there's a much bigger brakes as well. So, like, it should be able to handle its own. But like, is this the SVO or SVR version of the Defender then? Like, I mean, it
I think
is
so.
the same engine, right?
I think so, and I mean, just the fact that they're doing 22-inch wheels, that tells you, this isn't like a heavy off-road focus. And we've seen great success from Mercedes with their AMG lineup of G wagons. I know when it first came out in the mid 2000s, we're like, what the heck, side exhaust and low-profile tires on a G wagon doesn't really make sense. But that's the one that people want these days. So I can see why there is a demand for something like this. Um, and yeah, it's like a sports model, but it's not meant for the people that want to go rock crawling in their Defender, I guess.
No, it's definitely not. This is more like, hey, I got a luxurious SUV, and it's potentially something to compete against the G wagon. Because I mean, there's really nothing else other than a G wagon in this specific segment.
To me, I mean, the Defender still doesn't really stack up to a G wagon in terms of capability and just how cool it is. I think the G wagon with its triple lockers, it is just a different beast.
Okay, well, I mean, that's your opinion. I I think, if parked on the street, a Defender and a G wagon, yeah, the people that are gonna probably gravitate towards a G wagon because it looks cooler. But there's gonna be people that's gonna be looking at the Defender. That's gonna be like, huh, you know what? That's a very elegant SUV. That's something that I can drive without feeling uncomfortable. Because a G wagon, like I did have
Yeah.
one like year and a bit ago. I didn't feel great in it. Like it's an amazing car. You get so much attention, but it's not a car that you want to drive.
It's pretty cramped. The Defender is the opposite. It's a massive car, and I think we haven't seen too many on the road here yet. But again, I've mentioned it before. But this new Defender is massive. It's as big as their three-row Discovery, if not bigger. It's like even taller than that. But yeah, I've seen a few on the road, and it's full size range. It's quite it takes up quite a bit of room.
It definitely does. but I absolutely love the Defender. I love the styling. There's a little bit of me that says it shouldn't be called Defender. There's a little bit of me that says this is more like Discovery. This is
Yeah.
kind of what Discovery was, right? It's a luxury SUV that can go off road. It's rugged. It can do everything. Sure, there are some styling elements from the Defender, from the original one, but
Mhm.
I see a lot of Discovery in here. And if I change a badging to Discovery, heck, I think it's the same thing.
I think you're right. I think when the Discovery first came out in the '90s, that's or maybe late '80s, that's kind of what the idea was to kind of soften up and make the normal Defender look seem a bit more livable. And I think this Defender is more like that, whereas the current Discovery, the one with the very ugly rear end, is
Because the plate is off to one side.
it's off to one side, and it always was off to one side, but
Yep.
it's just the way it's designed on the current one just doesn't work for me
Yeah.
or a lot of people. I think you got a point. I think this should be kind of straddles the line between Discovery and Defender.
hmm As for interior upgrades on this kind of SVO version, you get leather and Alcantara on the seats, so it's upgraded seats compared to regular Defender. And there's an optional 11.4-inch touchscreen, which looks pretty nice. But I mean, I've driven on quite a few Land Rover and Jaguar products, and their infotainment system just was never really the best. They always had some problems here and there. So it, oh, I'm curious to see kind of what they're able to come out of it.
Yeah, in terms of design, they always look really good, and they've got good resolution and good materials, I think. But it's just they never work. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, statistically speaking, I guess. I mean, for any manufacturer, the infotainment is seems to be the weak point these days. But for Land Rover, seems to stick up above the rest in that
Yeah.
department.
You also get an Alcantara steering wheel. Imagine going off road with your muddy hands, putting that
Uh,
on your beautiful Alcantara steering wheel.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely more of an on-road SUV, but it still has all the like the terrain response, all the good stuff that you will need in a Defender to go off-road.
Mhm.
So like, yes, it's probably not the best, but it can still do it.
Yeah, it's got upgraded terrain response and like a few extra features that really, if you had the right tires, you could pretty much go anywhere with this. Just like the G Wagon AMG models, I think you're not losing necessarily any of the base underpinnings that make it a great off-roader, but there are some things done to it that make it not as ideal, but it's still really solid. And in that Defender 90 trim with the V8, it just looks so good.
Yeah, the I think the Defender 90, it's the one to go for here with the supercharged V8. I mean, I'm a little scared to drive this with a shorter wheelbase. I'm just thinking, at the upper limits of handling, like how is it going to be? Is it going to be twitchy? Because generally, with a high powered vehicle, shorter wheelbase, taller, higher center of gravity, it's not a great equation for best
Yeah.
handling.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be a good handling car. I do find something really funny, and they've taken this right out of the G Wagon's playbook, which is they put a really beefy front caliper. It looks like a six pot, and then the rear is like the front caliper is blue. The rear caliper is not is just like a standard little sliding, probably single piston caliper, and it looks so cheap right
Oh, because
there.
you're
Yeah,
seeing this.
and the G
Yeah.
Wagon's done exactly that. I'm
Well,
sure it's just more for show, but
yeah.
it looks really funny because when you have that under 22-inch wheels, the rear you can barely see the rear caliper. And I've noticed that whenever I park next to a G like a G63 or a G65, and I see the rears, and with the AMG spokes, they kind of fan out near the middle, and you can barely see the brakes, and they've done the same thing here.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Overall, I think it's something that's new, exciting. As the pictures on Land Rover Media site, I mean, yes, it can go off road. no, you're not going to be taking this one here. I mean, you're probably going to be taking your regular P400 or the diesel versions. Do we get the diesel versions here in Canada? I don't think we do. We only get the one engine option, I think.
I don't know if they're coming or if they're available, but yeah, they
Yeah, because they
they do
used to
have
have
diesel
a
on some of their other models. Yeah,
yeah, they have like the D180s on like the Velar even. I
yeah,
remember I was looking at that a little while back. I mean, that's honestly that's probably like the the engine that you would normally choose for a Defender. It makes the most sense. It has good torque, but hell, I mean, there's nothing wrong with shoving a big
yeah,
supercharged V8 under the hood of a Defender.
yeah. No diesel option in Canada just yet. But they've barely rolled out the new model 90s and 110s, so we might see it down the road. But there's barely any on the road yet. So
Hmm. Well, I think that's really all I got for the Defender. You got anything else you want to add?
no, I think that's everything. Let's move on to the Volvo C40.
Yeah, talking about barely seeing on the road, Volvos. So this is the brand new Volvo X. Oh no X. Sorry, this is just the C40 Recharge, second electric vehicle from Volvo. The first one being their XC40. The C40 is essentially the XC40 in a coupe-like profile. So I mean, it looks great. I
It
love
is,
how it
yeah.
looks.
It is one of those. It depends how you frame it. If you say, I like, I want the SUV ride height and the extra ground clearance, but with the coupe styling, it almost makes sense. But the normal XC40 is such a handsome car as well. But this is definitely one of the best looking coupe SUVs out there. I think it just works. It almost resembles that Mitsubishi Eclipse that we roasted a while back, but it's just so much better in its execution. Like it's the same proportions, but it just
Mhm.
with the tail light design and those two little things on the roof. I think it's a really handsome SUV coupe.
Yeah, it looks amazing. Like there are a few styling updates comparing to the regular XC40. There are brand new headlights on this, which has like the multi reflector or multi projector beam, which we're not going to get here in North America because our laws here don't allow for that. So that it can like do the like dipping and whatnot in certain areas. Yeah, it's cool stuff.
Yeah.
We don't get it, but the taillights on the C40 here, absolutely beautiful. I love how it stretches all the way up to the top. I mean, that's a Volvo trait. A lot of Volvos have that, but this, the execution, all the way from the top, kind of to the middle. I kind of wish it like the where the light in the
Crossover.
center. Yeah, it stretches the entire width.
That's not
But
how Volvo. That's not the Volvo way, though.
it's not the Volvo way. But could you imagine if it finishes itself off like this perfect U?
Yeah. Um, and then one thing I just wanted to add, I guess, with the coupe shape, I think this may make sense in terms of aerodynamics.
Mm,
Being all efficiency driven. There's no mention of aerodynamics in the press release for this car, but this is the same shape that we see on, the Model Y, the Mustang Mach-E, and pretty much every hybrid and electric specialty car is always has this kind of coupe-like profile. So it may make sense as far as an electric car to have this kind of roof line as
yeah,
well.
they actually have said that it's slightly more range than the XC40, although the underpinnings are exact same. It's slightly more. So the underpinnings, it's a 78 kilowatt hour battery. You're looking at about 402 horsepower total from the front and rear motor. 0 to 80% charge. If you have like the maximum charging capabilities I can do, it's about 40 minutes. And then 0 to 100, we're looking at under 5 seconds. That's pretty good.
Nice.
That's
That's
pretty good.
pretty solid. I do want to mention there's a car that doesn't really get much love, which is the Volvo S60 Cross Country. Wasn't that long ago when
Wait,
that
the
was a thing.
S60?
S60, not the
Oh, the
XC70. We all
sedan.
know the XC70, but
Oh,
it's a lifted version of the S60. with a bit more ground clearance. And you know, when you're going down a snowy road in Sweden, it makes a lot of sense to have. And you still want a sedan, traditional sedan shape, but the cross country. This was a car that existed for one generation only, and
There's a reason for it.
there's a reason for it. It carries on the great success tradition of the Outback sedan. It's actually kind of cool. If you were to lower this, it would look sick with
Why
those
would
fender
you buy
flares.
a lifted version of something and then lower it? That makes no sense.
Have you seen lowered Audi Allros? They look amazing.
Oh gosh. You just
But
want a lower, because the reason why you want to lower it is because it has like those fender flares on it.
yeah,
So it looks cooler. That's why.
exactly. But this is not the first time Volvo has had kind of this coupe-like profile in a lifted body.
Definitely not. I Outside is very beautiful. Moving to the inside, it's going to be a full vegan interior, so there's no leather that's going to be used, and there's going to be a full Android tablet that's on the infotainment. So it's the
Yeah, it's
Android
all Google.
infotainment.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like full Google. It's the same as the XC40, so it's going to be easier to use, faster to response, compared to like the current system that Volvo has. The current system, like, I mean, if you have a Volvo, you know this, but if most of you probably don't, but when you start your car, you're going to be sitting and waiting a little bit for the infotainment to start up. This is supposed to remedy all of that. It's going to be a lot faster, easier to use, just a better system overall.
Yeah, it looks modern and it's very contemporary, like the theme and everything with this interior. I think it's very Nordic the way they've executed
Oh, absolutely.
the XC40 and C40. It's minimalist, but it's not like quite as stark as like a Tesla interior.
Yeah. You still get a full glass roof so that you get a little bit more light that enters the cabin. From the pictures here, I don't think there's a cover on it, which is I'm not sure about that. I wish that it had either some sort of cover or maybe like a button to kind of frost it or something. Because personally, I'm not a big fan of like having light come in all the time. There are times
Yeah.
when I want it to be just darker. Doesn't look like it has that option, but I think overall it's cool, and it revives the C name in Volvo's history, because this is not the first time Volvo had a C product. There was a C30, there's a C70.
C70.
I mean, no one bought those. Let's be honest; they weren't great hits. But the C30 was really cool. It was a little hatchback, and instead of a full hatch, the hatch was the glass itself. The C70 was a great hardtop convertible, and there wasn't too many of them.
Yeah, super safe as well. Like the amount
Oh
of
yeah,
safety tech they got on a convertible at the time was just groundbreaking.
yeah. Volvo does amazing work with their safety, no matter what car it is. I mean, they pride themselves on being one of the safest cars that you can purchase, and it's definitely not going to be something that they're going to deter away from. I love that little spoiler too.
Yeah, an anticipated range of over 400 kilometers. That's kind of where you want to be these days. It's not unheard of, but it's a solid amount of range. And like we were talking about before the show, that's all you really need. If you're going to charge it overnight, get your 80% done in 40 minutes, so you don't have to worry about tomorrow or the next few days. Really,
Mhm.
400 is all you really need, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I drove around in a smart electric, which had 80 kilometers of range because it was colder. And it was fine. I mean, I didn't stress too much. I was sweating a little bit when it reached like 2 kilometers of range and I couldn't find a plug, but it was okay. The I don't know what it's called. The C40. I keep thinking is an XC40.
XC40.
The C40 here is going to be the first Volvo that's going to be sold online. So you can actually purchase this off, well, not right now, but later on, you can purchase it off Volvo's website, as is going to be a new era of Volvo.
Yeah, I wonder where they got that idea from.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe another big electric company. Who
Yeah,
knows?
I wonder if they'll be able to to churn them out quite as fast as Tesla has, though.
I
That,
don't think they're going to churn them out as
yeah,
fast.
especially
Tesla
not
has,
here in North America.
yeah,
Yeah.
Tesla has a really good system built right now. I mean, there's a warehouse locally with filled with Model 3s and Model Ys. They have it down to a pat, but when you buy a Volvo, you can expect that your doors are aligned. You can expect that the paint is dried. Like it's not going to have those Tesla qualities. That's for sure.
Yeah, so that's about it for the C40, I think. Let's move on to our last news topic of this week, which is yet another small crossover SUV type car from Hyundai.
I mean, Hyundai they just keep pumping them out. There's so many of these little SUVs. This one is slightly bigger than the Kona, but smaller than like the Santa Fe or the Tucson. But it's bigger than the Venue. It's bigger than the Kona. They have so many SUVs, and they all fill that same market. But
Yeah, it's a little bit much. It's hard to kind of wrap your head around.
one thing to note is from what we can dig up, this one is not coming to North America. The Hyundai, I, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Is it Bayon, Bayin? Not sure. But it seems like it is not coming to North America. It is probably an European market or Asian
Hmm.
markets only.
It does remind me a lot of that Bolt EUV that we talked about not too
Hmm.
long ago.
Yeah.
Um,
The back end has a Aztec look to me.
doesn't
Eclipse
have quite the
Cross.
slope, but
It's it's
yeah.
it's not the slope so much, but the tail light.
Oh, the Eclipse Cross taillights, yeah.
Yeah, right. It has that very similar look to it. I mean, it's
Mhm.
totally the different size. But two engine options. One is like a 1 liter, the other is a 1.3. It's gonna have a mild hybrid technology built into it. I mean, it looks kind of cool, kind of like a shark in a way.
Mhm.
I like the
Yeah, it's a
headlight
great looking
design.
car. You just yeah yeah, it's a little bit longer in the trunk. It definitely looks bigger than the Kona and the
Yeah,
Venue. So
definitely not a
it's
bad looking vehicle, and you get
but
the same
yeah,
kind of interior as regular Hyundai's.
this interior does look a little bit higher end than what we see on the Venue and the Kona. So
Hmm.
yeah,
The
but again,
Kona actually got an update, which is actually very similar to this, though. The current Kona doesn't look anywhere near as good, but
okay.
I think 2021 Kona, that's when they went with the update, has the same kind of
Uh,
infotainment screen and everything, and
oh,
definitely does look
nice.
better.
Yeah, yeah, that is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really all I got to say. I mean, just
There's not that much,
what else can you
it's
say
just the
about the Kona?
same body stretched over and over. We're lucky we don't have to fight over this car. It's just, I think there's just too many models under what $28,000 now in Canada. If this were to have come here, that would be the fourth different little crossover SUV thing that we would have here.
Oh, I mean, I guess it, it's the same mentality that like Mercedes has. Just create a car for every single category and someone will buy it.
But I think the Mercedes way works better for me, where the A class, just you're changing the shape, but you're not changing the underpinnings so much. So
Mm,
if you want a coupe, you can have a coupe in a four doors form. If you want just kind of like a sporty SUV, you can. If you want a refrigerator on wheels, you can. And then you could just choose on like out of the different shape. And then there's a sedan, and then there's a shorter sedan, and then there's a little hatchback, and there's
yeah.
different ways to go about with one platform. It's not quite as confusing to me. I know what each one is, and then their naming scheme just makes sense. A, B, and whatever.
Yeah, as they
Yeah.
kind of go up the size. Yeah. I wonder if they're going to make a one that's smaller than the A, call it like double A.
Triple A, double A.
Who knows? But yeah, that's really all I gotta say about this little Hyundai. It's cool looking. It's not gonna come to North America, so we don't have to get too confused on it. We already have the Venue, the Kona, the Tucson, the Santa Fe, and the Telluride. Wait, nope, Telluride's Kia. The Palisade.
The Palisade.
It's too
Yeah.
many
Is there
models.
a Santa Fe XL in there too somewhere?
No,
Or
no, they killed out
no
the
more?
Santa Fe
Or
XL
Santa
for the
Fe Sport?
Palisade.
Is there a
No, no,
Santa
no,
Fe Sport? No.
no. There's no more Santa Fe Sport and XL. They
Okay.
they killed that off. Just Santa Fe now. But I mean, Hyundai, I guess they're trying to just have a little bit more of that market, right? By creating different
Covering
versions.
all your bases,
Yeah,
Oh,
someone's gonna buy it.
yeah, and it makes sense too. I mean, if you look at a Kona versus like what a CHR, and you're like, oh, the CHR is way bigger. Boom, we have to
Yeah, you just
bang
go right
on.
towards it. And yeah, this is basically the same size.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, let's
Sweet.
move on to the final thing here. We
Yeah, let's
have
talk about
the
your
review of
latest
the week.
video.
So the past Monday, I released the video for the TLX. The 2021 TLX, of course, in Canada here, they all come with shawled super handling all-wheel drive.
Out.
And
Shade.
I think it is a great vehicle. A lot of reviewers don't like it because they said it wasn't engaging. I don't know what they're on about. I thought like driving it, it was great. This is not a top trim. The Type S is going to come. That's going to have all the power. But for a base engine, this is amazing. The way that it puts the power down, the way that it feels around the corners,
I think so.
it's
And
a great vehicle.
I always talk to you about this because I know you're a crazy Accord fan and you've had so many Accords and TLs in your life. And
Just a
I
few.
tell you that I have so many friends that they always talk about that same car, which is the Accord 6-speed manual, and they think this is my grown-up Type R. It's got the same engine, but it isn't. Like the current Accord, even with a 6-speed manual, is nowhere near as exciting as a Type R. I think this kind of fills in that gap for me. I think this,
Mhm.
and even price point wise, it's in line with what you'd be paying for a Type R. But if you
Yeah.
just want something, a little bit more mature, a little bit nice, well, a lot nicer inside, not a little, than a
Yes.
Type R,
Yeah.
and actually still dynamic, I think this is, it answers that question. This is the biggest sedan that Acura has now, eh? There's no
Yeah.
more
RLX
RLX,
is dead.
and even from before, the TL was bigger than this, I think, or in terms of which segment it filled, the TL was kind
Yeah.
of up one size,
Yeah.
more like a Camry or an Accord. This is a little bit smaller than an Accord.
Yeah. So the overall length is about the same as the Accord, but the interior is smaller, and it's because of the double wishbone front suspension design. It took a
Mhm,
lot of that engine compartment space, so they had to move that back. So when you're
mhm.
looking at it from like a side profile, the greenhouse is further back than most vehicles, so it looks a little bit weird.
It
Um,
looks really dynamic, though. I mean, it's way more low slung, a little bit
yeah,
wider. I really like the look. I think they nailed it with this design, and
I think
yeah,
it looks great. Like especially in this red, it looks really, really good.
it looks
There's
good in the red. It looks good in the white. It looks good in the blue.
there's an
I don't know.
optional like arrow pack that you can buy. So like there's little arrow kit pieces that make it look just a little bit more aggressive. Um, but like the one thing I want to talk about is the engine. A lot of people's like, oh, it only has 272 horsepower, 280 pound-feet of torque. The V6 before had more power. Yes, it had more power, but this has more torque, and it fills in that torque gap a lot better than the previous V6.
Yeah, and if you were to look up V6 J series fanboy, you would be in there as the picture. And for you to come out and say, you know what, this engine is more compelling than the old one, I think it does speak quite a bit about this drivetrain.
Yeah, and I mean it is a K20. It's a K20Z, no, K20 C6. I don't think there's a tune for it yet, but I'm sure it's going to come
Honda
out because
K
it's a
tune,
K20, right?
whatever. Yeah.
It's going to be similar to the K20 that's in the FK8, the Civic Type R, and
Yeah,
the
there's
Accord.
already a lot of aftermarket support for the Accord 6 speeds and sport models. This is better on gas than the old V6
Oh,
super handling
much better,
all-wheel drive.
much better.
Yeah, That was my first car too. Actually, was a '05 TL. That's the car I learned to drive in, and unfortunately, it was more so that my parents bought it for my grandpa, and he didn't want to drive it. He's like, "This car is so heavy; it's bad on gas." He drove a ton. He drove about 30,000 k a year, just
Oh wow.
going like to the casino and like to drive like on road trips and stuff. So he's like, "I'm gonna keep my Corolla," and so that TL just sat there, and then that became kind of my first car, which it's a great sounding engine, but I don't know. To me, it's just so bad on gas. It was averaging like 14, 13 liters per 100K.
Yeah,
It's pretty normal for that car, I think.
it definitely is. I mean, my Accord was about there. It was around like 12 to 13 liters. It's not much better, even when slight with something that was slightly lighter and less displacement as well. But
Hmm.
I mean, 2 liter turbo, that's where the industry is going. Everyone has a 2 liter turbo, right?
Hmm.
But I think a lot of people are forgetting that this is the base engine. A lot of people are thinking, oh, I want my V6. I want that V6 power. Well, wait. The Type S is going to be a 3 liter V6. It's going to make 355 horse
Exactly.
and 354 pound-feet of torque. That's the engine that you're looking for,
Yeah,
not
and you have
this
to
one.
make an apples to apples comparison. This compares with the base engine on the Lexus IS, which is very underpowered. Well, not very underpowered, but quite underwhelming.
Mhm.
It compares with what the Mercedes 220 engine, which
Yep, the
is not this
A220.
powerful. The 330i and the A4 2 liters, those are quite good in my experience.
Mhm.
But even the C class, the C300 engine is
Yeah,
uh,
but
not
then
this
if you
competitive.
look at a German rival, the pricing of any of those German rivals, it's way more than what you're going to be paying for the TLX. Because
Of
the TLX in
course.
Canada here, you can get one for under 45K. As spec, this is the A spec. It's under 50,000. So yes, it's a bit more, but
That's
$45,000
that's
for
a lot
two
of car
liter
for the
all
money,
wheel
I think.
drive. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you get with the A spec since the body kit is not
Yeah.
included? Or
So you get the heated and cooled front seats. In Canada, you also get the heated steering wheel. You get what else do you get? You get the flat bottom steering wheel. You get the upgraded seats, which is
oh,
the
better
leather Alcantara.
headlights, LED
Um,
fog lights,
oh yeah, you get the fogs. You also get Qi wireless charger that isn't available on the base. Some other things as
17
well.
speaker audio system.
The ELS audio system. I mean,
Huh?
it it's it was just a great handling car. There's not a lot of cars that you get into and you just feel that excitement, but the TLX had that.
I mean, let's talk about how this compares to one of the cars you released recently, which was the Q50.
Mm,
Obviously, a much older platform. How does this compare handling wise and just
yeah,
just fun to drive factor?
the fun to drive factor, the TLX was definitely better. It felt lighter on its feet, although it's not
Mhm.
light. This thing is 4,000 pounds, but the Q50 felt heavier. But the Q50 that I drove was the base kind of model, where it doesn't
Which
have.
is what this compares to be fair. It's
Yeah,
just not
but
Red Sport. Uh,
there's a Q50S with the upgraded kind of more sportier suspension. The one I drove was more kind of comfortable riding. So I think the Q50, when I was driving that, I felt more comfortable in it comparing to this, but this felt a lot more agile. And when I just turned in, this was a lot more connected.
You know what they've gone and done though, which is they facelifted the ILX so much that it just looks like the mini version of this, and I think it kind of does this car a disservice because the ILX is such an outdated disappointment.
Well,
The interior is from 10 years ago.
for those of you that don't know, the ILX is based on the previous generation of the Honda Civic. So technically is like a 10th or 11th generation Honda Civic. No, 10th.
Ninth gen. It's a
Ninth,
ninth gen Civic.
ninth gen Civic? Yeah.
And the 10th gen Civic is now on its way out. We're going to see
Oh,
the
right.
11th gen very soon. So, yeah, this ILX, I don't know how it's still around. Exterior wise, it looks very similar actually.
It
There's a lot of
does.
family resemblance here. I think the rear end of the TLX is a little bit let down because it looks a little bit too much like the ILX for my liking.
Mhm.
But the front end looks really solid.
Yeah, it's just you see the biggest difference from the side profile. The ILX is a lot more compact than the TLX is, but you're not going to get that driving experience in an ILX.
Yeah.
The ILX it's still just a regular 2.4 4-cylinder. It puts all the power to the front wheels. I don't believe it has an all-wheel drive option. I could be wrong, but the ILX is not a driver's car. It's for someone that was looking at a Civic and was like, "Hey, you know what? The ILX is, maybe a luxury version of it, and that's why it exists."
Yeah, I think there was a point in time when that car made a bit of sense, but that interior now is just, you always bring out the Mazda 3. I don't think it's even a fair comparison. I think it's almost as, I would say the normal Civic now is almost as good of an interior. Definitely the
Yeah,
Accord. The Accord already has a better interior than the ILX.
yeah. It's just because it's dated. The interior, it's that dual tier. It's a dual tier infotainment
Yeah,
system of the
with the
previous. Yeah,
non-touch screen up top, and
yeah.
yeah,
It definitely is
yeah.
dated, but there's still people buying it. Might be kind of surprising, but there are people that are like, "Huh, I like it."
It looks good. I mean, don't get me wrong, and it's cheap enough because you can't get into a Lexus at that price anymore. A
Mhm.
base IS starts now at 42.9. They've killed off that low end model for the IS, and the TLX looks, at least to my eyes, it looks roomier in the back seat than the IS. I don't know if that's just me.
I gotta sit in it side by side. I when I ran the numbers for it, it was basically the same. It was
Hmm.
basically the same between TLX and IS. But what was surprising for me was the TLX back seats was actually roomy enough for me to put child seats in there without moving the front seat that far forward. That was surprising for me.
Yeah, I think because it's got a bit of length in that rear door
Mhm.
that you're not getting in some other models. So,
Yeah,
um, obviously the Germans are a lot more expensive. From the Germans, you're looking one step down. So you're looking at the 2 Series, the really meh 2 Series, and the A3 and the
I get that
A
2 Series next
Class.
week.
Oh, joy.
I got a 228, so it's gonna be great.
Oh,
It's not even the
thrilling.
two. It's not even the 235.
The 235, which is not even like as cool as the old 235.
No,
Yeah. Uh, yeah, the Grand Coupe, and it's not cheap, that car.
no,
Uh,
it's not. It's like 60K.
oh,
It's a lot of money.
yeah. But yeah, and it's quite ugly. I don't know. I think the A class is actually quite nice, in this size category from a German luxury brand. I think that the A class is kind of the winner right now. But yeah, that would compete directly with the TLX. But apples to apples is one thing, but people are going to cross shop this and the A class between the TLX. I think the TLX is probably a little bit more exciting to drive, but they're both great.
So close. So
So
close.
close. But
A220 with a bunch of plates.
put yourself in the mind of someone shopping for one of these, 40 to 50,000 dollar range luxury sedans, sports sedan, whatever you want to call it. I think you would cross shop these two cars. You can forego a little bit of backseat room uh, for that Mercedes brand. I think the interior of the A class is a little bit more timeless. I like the details, like the vents and the lighting. Those kind of stuff do stand out a bit. The digital cluster is quite nice. Um,
Unless you get the base model.
does the base model not get a
Have
digital
you not
cluster?
seen the base interior 8220?
No.
Oh, my friend. Base A220 cluster. Oh, oh, I gotta find it for you. It's this. It's two 7-inch screen wrapped in thick
Oh, okay.
black.
Yeah, yeah. So it's still a digital cluster. It's just small.
It's just a 7-inch screen in the middle of these big
Yeah.
fat black borders that you have.
BMW did that for a while too. But yeah, I think you can get a okay, decently equipped A220 for mid 40, high 40s, let's say. So I do think you would cross shop these cars. This, the CLA, and I don't think you can really touch a GLA for this kind of money. But if you're just looking for a little sedan, I think um, Mercedes. There's some reason to choose it. I mean, you know, most people shopping in this category aren't that big into driving, anyways. Um,
Yeah, but I think the TLX, I mean, it's for drivers. It's made for drivers. It's,
mhm.
it's made for people who love how the vehicle drives. Because if you don't, you're better off buying an Accord. It makes more sense. It's bigger, it's more fuel efficient, it's cheaper, and the interior materials is it's pretty good. I wouldn't say it's as good as the TLX, but it's pretty good already, right?
Mhm.
There's no need to step into TLX if the Accord is what you're looking for. The Accord, or sorry, the TLX. The TLX is for someone that wants to have a little bit more driving feel. I don't think the A220 gives you that driving feel.
No.
The C class would, but not the A220.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I don't think people are too picky about that, but overall styling wise, I think the A does look pretty handsome. It's a nice little package, and obviously you can't forget the star on the grill. So
Yeah,
at the end of the day, that alone is going to sell itself. Uh, Maybe more so than the Acura badge.
it
Uh,
definitely will sell better than the Acura patch. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think that's really it. Nice and easy here. We wrapped up a lot earlier than we normally would.
Yeah, we've kind of tried to trim down the show a little bit as well, just to make it more approachable for a lot of audiences. I know we did get some feedback, and people were saying, if the episode is over an hour long, people might be intimidated by that. So, yeah, let's try to keep this. Let us know if you guys have any other comments or other feedback you want us to integrate, or cars you want us to talk about, any topics you want us to talk about. We're pretty dynamic here, so yeah. Why is that car upside down?
It's a S60 cross country. That's the way that it's designed. There's
I
more than
bet
one
you forgot
picture too.
about that car.
I did forget about this car.
Oh,
I
look, there's
definitely
the
did.
old one. There's the old one in the cross country in the ocean race
Huh.
spec.
S60 XC. Is this from factory?
It must be. Maybe not in
Rare.
Canada.
Yeah.
Maybe not in North America, but
Huh.
uh so for those who are on the audio version of our podcast, Jimmy has a picture of the mid 2000s S60, the first generation S60 in a cross country spec. So it's just in the blue color that was special for the Ocean Race Edition, where they were racing yachts across the Atlantic or something. It's a really nice blue color. Lots of plastic cladding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's quite a bit of plastic cladding around the wheels, or wheel wells itself, and lower
And
body.
the
I mean,
bumpers.
it's definitely lifted. This thing looks pretty cool.
It does. The XC, you know, that was my family's car back in '03. We had an XC70, which is practically the same as a V70, but you just get a little bit taller suspension and plastic cladding all around. So, uh,
And that
yes,
began your love of high
plastic
riding.
cladding.
Anyways, I think we should cut it here. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you if you're on YouTube or any of our podcast apps or whatnot. But yeah, we'll catch you next week, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.